right, guys, welcome to Cruise Control. How are you guys all doing tonight? So glad you guys could all make it, and thank you so much. We're going to start off the recording tonight by looking at what it was like to drive the Toyota Supra. We're going to start with that one first, and then we're going to move on to the Mazda Miata. But first, I want to say hi to everybody. So let's see if anybody has joined us right now. Hello, hello, Helena. Nice to see you. Hi. How are you? All right, thank you guys for joining. All right, so the Toyota Supra, let me move back to that page here real quick. The Toyota Supra, as you can see the picture that's up here, the one that I had was originally this color actually, and then they had it wrapped in a beautiful dark red. It was gorgeous, it was stunning. Most of the time I really liked being in the Supra, but I'm gonna pull up some pictures here and show you some of the things that I'm not the biggest fans of. And that's going to mainly be fake vents on a supercar, well, a sports car at least. I wouldn't call it a supercar. Okay, so this right here, as you can see where my mouse is, this looks like it's going to be a vent. And it would be functional if it would go through there and it would cool off this wheel with this big red brake caliper, because the majority, when you brake, especially in a sports car, the majority of your braking comes from the front wheel. And so what you want is air to pass through this little duct right here and to cool off that wheel so it is functional. You know, I want function, not just looks. And so this looks like it's going to cool off the wheel, but it doesn't. And so I don't like that. And then that's not the only one that's in the Toyota Supra, so I don't like that. Go back and make sure everybody's high. Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. I appreciate that. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the Supra. If you guys have any questions on like how fast it was, anything that you'd like to know about the Toyota Supra, this car that I'm talking about right now, please go ahead and leave that in the link down below, so that way I can help get that answered for you. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next little picture. Aha, see this little image right here? Again, what I'm circling, this looks like it's going to take heat out of that fender well. This is going to be where the hot engine is, and it's going to let air escape, so that way the engine stays nice and cool. Great design element if it was functional, but again, it's fake. So I'm going to be beating the same bush here. It's just I don't like the fake vents. Everything else about the styling of the car, I can get over. Again, right here, by the door card, by the door jamb, this right here, this is a fake vent. I don't like that, right? It's not cool. And then in the back, I don't know if we'll be able to see where those are. They're tucked in. Oh, those are real exhaust, so that's nice. Can't really see it, but back over here, this little shadowy edge part, there's some fake vents that are in there too. I don't know if they took pictures of those. So they didn't, but that's cool. So let me go back here and start from the beginning. Aha. So there was an interior shot. Boom. This guy right here, this is my biggest problem. This is an automatic transmission. Look, I know a lot of people, they don't like to shift manual transmissions anymore, and that's fine. However, if you're going to sell a sports car before we all have to, you know, force ourselves to get an EV, which I know it's going to be better for gas consumption and probably better for the environment, all that kind of stuff, I'm on board. But before I have to go to that point, when you're going to make a sports car, at least give it the option with a manual. There are certain sports cars that have a high take rate with a manual transmission. The Mazda Miata has a high take rate with a manual transmission. It's available in automatic, but a lot of people buy it in a manual. If you buy the Subaru BRZ, over 70% of those are bought in a manual. So in sports cars, a lot of people that buy those are people like me that actually enjoy rolling their own gears. So that was my biggest complaint there. And then the other one is, you see how the window's kind of halfway down? Normally there's wind buffeting, which means when it's going down the window with these down, it like causes pain to go inside your eardrum. It goes woo, 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 and then it hurts. So that was that little piece that I put on the outside of it. And I made, or I didn't put it on there, sorry. The owner put that little piece on the outside of it. It was like a carbon fiber piece. It was probably inexpensive, but it made it to where the air wrapped around the car instead of like getting inside there and then making you go deaf. So those are things that I didn't like. Let's see if anybody else has any questions. No questions yet. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next car. All right, so the next car, or you know what? Let me wrap up here on the Toyota Supra. So here's everything that I liked about the Supra. If you guys haven't seen the video, go ahead and check out the video as well. It was really fast because, of course, it's going to be. It has a turbocharged inline 6-cylinder. It is from BMW, and there are those that complain that Toyota didn't make this. But you know what? That's not something that I care about. The fact that the Supra name is back, hadn't been back here since the 90s, so we're talking 2 decades. So I like the fact that it was back here. Looks, you know, like I said, besides the fake vents, I think it looks really cool. It's priced pretty good. It starts off at $43,000 with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that's turbocharged. And then to get the 3-liter, it's a little over $50,000. So not that bad for it being a sports car. Again, I just want the manual. The seats themselves, they hugged me really good on the side, but they didn't really hold me in with my my legs, so I didn't like that part. It felt like it was more of a long-range cruiser that was just a really fast coupe and comfortable. That I could see. But as far as a sports car, it weighs 3,400 pounds. There's no manual. You don't feel like you're really engaged. Those are the types of feelings that I got with it. I still really like it. I'm still very excited that it's here, but the interior was a little bit boring. This piece right here that's on the steering wheel, this cheap piece of plastic, like, it looks like they could have done just a little bit more, and I'd have been happier. Although there are new versions with a red interior that at least livens it up, so that's pretty cool. Let me see if I can pull that up for you guys. 2022 Supra red interior. So here you go. Here's some pictures of that red interior. So this is really cool, and you can tell this is right-hand drive, but it's going to come to America as well. So this is going to be something that's available this year, and they are supposed to add a manual. So we've heard. Toyota has not confirmed it specifically, but as far as, you know, people that read the internet like I do for car, it's supposed to be out actually by summer, a manual transmission. So my biggest gripes are going to be fixed because you're going to have the manual transmission. You can get those little things to fix it. And then honestly, Toyota says you can remove those fake vents and then make them functional yourself, which it's just an extra step as an owner that you shouldn't have to do. But at least you can make them functional, which is better than not. So then there you go. All right, so now, unless somebody else has any questions, we're going to move on to the Mazda Miata. Any questions? Nope, no questions yet. All right. Again, feel free to ask any questions, guys. Go ahead and leave them down in the comments down below. So here we go. The Miata. So this one right here is the color that I had. I'm going to tell you right now, spoiler alert, I had more fun driving the Miata because it's an actual sports car than I did the Supra. Is it as good looking? No, but it has a couple of things over the Supra. Number one, weight. This is 2,400 pounds. Does it sound 1,000 pounds lighter than the other one that I said was 3,400? Because it is. And trust me, when you lose 1,000 pounds, it makes things more nimble. It feels like it wants to play. And that's what a sports car, when you say sports car to me, that's what I want it to do. I want the car to want to like, hey, man, let's get in the car and let's go. Great manual transmission, great sounding engine, very comfortable seats. I was held in way better with these seats than I was the Supra. The interior fit and finish was just as good, but it was better color palette. You know, you had different colored seats and the color that's from the outside. So if you pick a red car, then it's painted on the side of the inside door. So if you pick a blue car, green car, whatever, it's painted in. So they carry over a lot of color, which is nice to be in a sports car. And then the top comes down. So this is a convertible, you know. There we go. Here's another picture of it. So you can see right here, this little open spot, it's just nice. And then when the windows are up, even when it's cold outside, you don't freeze. You just put the heater on. The heated seats were great. I did wish that there was a few things. It says, which one would I get? Of course, a manual. And of people that have watched this or clicked on this before, 88% said, like me, a manual. But of course, it's a Miata. So 0 to 60 in about 5.7 seconds. That's not going to be that fast. It definitely didn't feel that fast at 6,000 feet elevation where I tested it. I had trouble getting the back tires to break loose. Granted, I put the first mile on this car, so engine was not broken in. And so it's going to take a while for the engine to break in, 500 miles, maybe 1,000 miles. And then it's going to feel a little bit more responsive. But this is one of the cars that I'm actually considering for myself. My wife and I, we really liked it. Go ahead and check the video. We have that on our YouTube channel. She was with me, so thank you, Jess, for coming with me. I always love it when you do car reviews, especially when it's about cars that we're going to buy. So I'm going to add a car for the channel, And this RF Miata, let me tell you why it's on that list. I really want a genuine sports car. I don't want something that's like, oh, here's something that's kind of sort of sporty. Like, no, I want something that's going to be the real deal. I want to be able to roll the gears. I want to be able to love the manual transmission. I need it to make me smile. I want every trip in this car, even if we're just going to go to the grocery store, even if we're just going to go to the park, every trip in that car should put a smile on my face. Then obviously when I hit a canyon carving road that's really twisty, it's going to put a big smile on my face. And I also want to do some track days. I got to do a track day last year. I am no pro at all. I still have a lot to learn when it comes to driving, and I'm excited to learn those types of things, you know? So this car is so good in handling. No, it's not going to win any straight line drag races, but for handling, oh man, it's just ridiculously good. I love how fast it was as far as like once it carries speed, not the acceleration, but it can carry speed through a corner. So that's what I mean by how fast it was. Love the retractable hardtop. It looks pretty good. It's affordable. It's about $35,000, which is still a lot of money. However, this is something that I'd like to add to the channel, something like this. Or I had talked about the Civic Type R in one of my previous live streams, and I also have that video if you guys want to check that out. That's another one that I'm looking at. Then next week, something for you guys to look forward to, I got to drive the GR86 in the automatic. And spoiler alert, I also got to drive it in the manual. So for the first video that's going to come up, the longer video, it's going to be on the automatic because it did more of the cinematic shots on the outside so you could see it. I didn't really do that, a lot of that with the manual followed by a manual video. So in the next 2 weeks, you're going to see the automatic video and manual. And that's going to be another car that is one of the 4 that I'm looking at, followed by what's called a GR Corolla, which is very similar to the Type R, which is a hatchback, manual transmission, turbocharged engine. So 3-cylinder instead of a 4, and instead of it being front-wheel drive like the Type R, it's all-wheel drive. But it's not just all-wheel drive in the typical sense where it's 50-50. You can change how much power. When I say 50-50, I mean half the power goes to the front wheels, half the power goes to the back wheels, right? Or you can click a button and then 60% of the power goes to the front wheels, 40% of the power goes to the back wheels. That's going to increase understeer, which is what you want if you're on bad roads, like maybe snow, rainy, icy, things like that. You want 60-40 or 50-50. But when it's a really nice dry road, you can go 70 to the back, 30 to the front. And why you want something like that is called oversteer. So when you're coming out of a corner, if you get pushed, that's understeer. As you're trying to turn, the G-forces are pushing you out, right? And that's what happens in front-wheel drive cars and even all-wheel drive cars. But in rear-wheel drive cars, when you steer, sometimes it steers too much, and then the back end starts to slide out, and that's called oversteer. So this is going to have 70% of the power in the back, 30% up front, and so it's going to be able to kind of give you the best of both worlds. The front is going to kind of grab and pull you through the corner, and then the back end's going to slide out a little bit. So I'm very excited to drive that car as well. So those are my 4. We have the Civic Type R, probably the 23, the brand new one. Then the 2022 Miata, the 2022 GR86, and the 2022 GR Corolla. So those are the 4 cars that I'm thinking about. So leave your comments down below which one you think I'm going to end up getting. Let me check, see if anybody's got some. Ooh, the Miata was fun. Life Force Energy. Hey, how you doing, Life Force Energy? That is my beautiful wife, Jess. Yes, it was exceptionally fun. So thank you so much for coming with me. It was really cool. Rithium, oh nice. All right, yeah. So it was really nice. It was really cool. Do you guys have any questions on the Miata or the Supra that we talked about so far? After this, I'm going to segue into like EV vehicles. There's a lot of news when it comes to EVs, but I want to help answer any questions that you guys might have as far as those cars that we talked about. All right, so it doesn't look like we have any questions. So let me go ahead and move forward. Cool. All right. Oh, did I get a question as soon as I left? Nope, just a smiley face. Cool. All right. All right, so now we're going to move into, where are we at here? So Chevy, this blue truck that's right here, they called it the Silverado EV. Silverado is the name of the pickup truck that Chevy's had for decades, right? It's been around for a very long time. I used to own a 2004 Chevy Silverado. Mine was an extended cab, meaning it had the regular cab and then the small little extra cab in the back. This is called a crew cab. These are 4 full-size doors. Mine was a full-size door followed by like a half door. It's still open, which was nice. Suicide style, which was cool. So people could still hop in the back. And I love that truck. It was a 5.3 liter V8. It had 295 horsepower, about 330 foot-pounds of torque. It could tow everything that I needed. I'd put my quad in the bed of the truck, and I would just go to the mountain or the desert, and I would go camp out and ride my quad. It was a great truck. I loved it. And then this little F-150 that's right here, I had something very similar. My Silverado wasn't automatic. My F-150 was a manual. I had a 1996 forest green F-150. Had a 4.9 liter inline 6-cylinder. So instead of it being like a V8, which means 4 cylinders come this way and 4 cylinders come that way, it was all in a line, right? So it was an inline 6-cylinder. So I had 6 cylinders in the line, but it also had a 5-speed manual transmission, which was just a lot of fun to have in the truck. Not a lot of power, but again, I didn't tow much. Again, just the quad would be in the bed of my truck, and I would just go camping out in the desert, just go right around till it got dark, and then just sleep in the bed of my truck. It's a lot of fun. So that's what I use my trucks for. I've never been a heavy tower and stuff like that. More just toys that go in the bed of the truck and then just go camping. That's been more my speed. And then the occasional Home Depot run and things of that nature. So these that we're looking at right now, these are the EV variants of the trucks that I've owned. This blue one is from Chevy. Again, that's the Silverado EV. They have another vehicle called the Avalanche, which this to me looks like it's designed after. And then in the midgate in the Avalanche, it folds down on the inside of the cabin to give you extra storage. And that's what this new Silverado EV does as well. So to me, a better name for this would be the EV Lanch or the Avalanche. So, but they call it the Silverado EV. The other one that's right here is called the Ford Lightning, which is a better name in my opinion. The original Ford Lightning was introduced in 1993. It was a performance variant of the existing Ford F-150. So you had the standard F-150 and then you had the F-150 Lightning, which meant lightning quick. You could go faster. So they've had a couple iterations of the Lightning. They were never electrified before, meaning no electric motors and stuff like that. But they were the faster variants. And now when they were going to go with an EV F-150, instead of just calling it the F-150 EV, they called it the Ford Lightning, which is a cooler name. So of the two, I think the Ford has the cooler name. However, we're going to go back and forth on some of the things that I like on each one. If you guys have any questions on these EV trucks, please put that in the comments down below so I can make sure I answer those questions for you. All right, so both of these have a front trunk. So when you open up the hood where you would normally see the engine, these are going to actually have your trunk in the front, which is really nice. Then let's see. Okay, so towing. So this is showing the Ford Lightning towing, and this is probably going to be the biggest mark against the Lightning. We go here and it says up to 300 miles of range with its larger 131 kilowatt battery pack. The standard pack is 98 with only 230 miles of range. When you're towing, you're going to cut that mark in half. So if it says 230 miles, you're really only going to get to go to about 115 when you're towing something like this. So you're not going to be able to tow very far until you run out of juice. Well, if you're towing a camper, are you going to be where there's electricity or are you going to be in the middle of nowhere? Well, if you're going to go camping in the middle of nowhere and you have an electric truck and you used all your juice to get there, how do you get home? Well, you could buy a gas generator and put it in the bed of the truck and use that to charge your truck. But buying a gas generator kind of defeats the purpose of buying an electric truck in the first place. So you could camp at sites like where RV hookups would be, right? Because if you have an RV or a camper like this where they have RV hookups, you plug something in. So then you could camp at only places that have hookups, right? But what if you wanted to go out into the boonies? And you go, Eric, what about charging stations along the way? Well, those are in big cities. Like I'm in Colorado. So charging stations are going to be in places like Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Denver. Those are the 3 biggest areas here on this side of the mountain, right? So we're on the eastern slope of Colorado. If you're on the western slope, then you have Grand Junction and a couple other towns on that side. But on this side, those are your big 3 cities. And of course, you're going to have charging stations along the I-25. That's the interstate that's here. And you're going to have charging stations along that. But if you want to go camping, let's say 100 miles into the mountains, and you can only go 115 miles when you're towing this, it's not good. So immediately, that's where the EV Silverado or Silverado EV, I don't love the name, that's where this comes in at a much better position. Let's see if they say the size of the battery pack on the Chevy. If they don't, I already know it. Aha, 200 kilowatts. So on the larger battery pack here, it says 200 kilowatts. Well, that is 69 more kilowatts, right? And that's what you want. The kilowatts is the size of the battery, it's the battery capacity. So think of that as gallons in the tank, right? So let's say your car holds 10 gallons. So let's say the Ford holds 10 gallons with its 98 kilowatt battery pack. Well, this is more than double, right? So now you're at 20 gallons. So you have more fuel so you can go farther. So again, if you're going to half the distance, now you can go to that 100 miles to where you were going to go camp before with the Ford, but you still have another 100 miles to get home. Boom. Problem solved. Chevy says, we got you. Don't worry about it. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to want the Chevy EV because I don't want to have what's called range anxiety, meaning, am I going to have enough juice to get me home? Well, I don't want to have to worry about that when I'm buying a truck. Otherwise, I'm just going to go buy a gas truck because even when I'm out in the boonies, I may have to pay more for gas because it's convenient. So they're going to charge me more for it. But at least I know there's going to be gas there, right? So that is going to be one of the biggest draws to the Chevy EV for most consumers is the fact that it's going to have more range. Now, this is the larger battery pack. We don't know the size of its smaller one, but they said the minimum amount of range is between 250 and 300. Well, the minimum amount of range from Ford is 230. Even if their minimum range is 250, that's still 20 more than Ford. But if they give 300 as their minimum, now all of a sudden their minimum is Ford's maximum. That's going to make a really big difference when somebody goes to buy an EV truck. The bad news is this Chevy Silverado EV, it's not going to be available anytime soon. You're going to have to wait, or I'm going to have to wait. We're all going to have to wait. So they just said you can put your order in there right now, but the first ones aren't going to start being delivered until fall of like 23. And some of these aren't going to be out till like summer of 24. So you have about 2.5 years realistically until you see these on the road. So you've got time. So hopefully nobody's in a big hurry. Let's go ahead and pause and see if anybody has any questions. No questions yet. That's cool. All right. So again, if you guys have any questions, you can ask me questions on the Supra, the RF Miata, and right now we're talking about the EV truck. So any questions you guys might have, go ahead and put that in the comments and I'll make sure that I get to address those for you immediately. All right. So one of the pictures that was here has what I love most about the EV Silverado. If you pay close attention, let's see if I can zoom in here. Do you see right here in the bed of the truck that these sheets are going into the truck? That's because it has what's called a mid gate. So in the back of the truck, all trucks have what's called a tailgate because it's at the tail end of the truck. Well, this EV Silverado is like the Chevy Avalanche, where it has a mid gate, meaning in the middle of the truck, it has another gate that folds in. Think about this. If you have a sedan, a car with 4 doors, you open up the trunk, you need to be able to put more stuff in there. You can fold your seats forward and fit more things through. That's exactly what this truck is being able to do. And now all of a sudden you go from 5'11" worth of space to put inside the bed, and now it goes to 10 feet. So now you can put up to 10-foot long items inside there, which is amazing that it can do that. So even if it didn't have more range than the Ford Lightning, I would have voted for the EV Silverado right there. And you go, Eric, what if it's going to cost more? Well, I don't know if this is going to tell us how much it costs, but I'll tell you right now, they're going to start at the same price. So $39,900, they're going to start at the same price. But the biggest difference is going to be this. If we go back up to where were we looking at those battery packs, to get the huge 300 miles of range, so 70 more miles of range, do you think it's a couple $1,000s more to get 70 miles of range? No. They upcharge, when I say they, it's Ford. Ford upcharges from a $39,000 truck. The cheapest way to get to that 300 miles of range is $73,000. So 39 to 73. So it's over $30,000 jump just to get 70 miles of range. That's terrible. Who would make that business decision? I wouldn't. Now, the Chevy Silverado is going to start at that same $39,000, and no, it's not going to come with the 400 miles of range for that price. However, they said that you're going to be able to add it to that work truck because the biggest difference between the Ford and the Chevy, Ford makes you go up to the next model, And they don't let you just add the extended range. They go, no, 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 no. You have to buy a whole bundle package of like $20,000 worth of stuff. Half of it you don't care about. Chevy says, no, 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 no. We're going to let you buy the base work truck. Now, here's what I don't know. I don't know if they're going to make us buy like $20,000 package as well, or if they're just going to be like, here's a separate, just $10,000 option, which is what we want, Chevy and Ford and Dodge and anybody that's going to make an EV truck. If you're going to give an extended range option, make it a standalone option. Like, yes, I want to double my range or give myself an extra 100 miles of range, and I want to spend that on a $10,000. Great. So hopefully that's what Chevy does, because if you can get a $39,000 truck, add it for $10,000 and get these 400 miles of range for 49 grand. And then there might be nice things like maybe a bed liner you want to throw in there for $600 and maybe a towing package, right? And so maybe it ends up costing you $52,000, $53,000. That's not a bad deal to get 400 miles of range. All right, see if anybody has any questions. Byungshin, thank you so much for the donation. Greatly appreciated. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put that in the comments down below. I'd be glad to help you out. If you have any questions as far as what cars you're looking for, that's what this live stream is really for. We're going to switch to that here in the next couple of minutes. If you give me like a price limit, you're like, hey, I'm looking at something that's under $30,000. I want it to be a family car or a sports car or a truck. I'll look with the zip code that's in your area and within so many miles of your house, and I'll be able to help you out. But thank you so much for the donation. Greatly appreciated. All right. And Rithium, you're right. That is really nice for long hauls, right? That extended range, that is really helpful for those long hauls. All right, so back over to the Lightning here. Let me also go back here real quick. Anytime somebody has a question on cars, for the next 30 minutes, if you guys want me to look something up for you, go ahead and put that in there. If not, then I'm just going to keep talking about car news and things of that nature and keeping that going. Or if you have any other questions on cars, trucks, SUVs, minivans, any kind of car related questions, go ahead and put that in the comments down below, and I'll make sure that I address that for you guys as soon as I can. And again, thank you guys for coming on. All right, so back to the Ford Lightning. So there's a few things that I like better about the Ford Lightning. It sounds like I've only been harping on it. Let's go ahead and get into some of the things that I like better. This is a traditional truck design. Why would I hate on someone that has a new design? Let's look at the back here. This little tailgate that's back here, or this little bed of the truck. You see how it's just a normal flat design? Okay, that's a big deal, because if you want to buy things that fit that, anything that has been made for any other truck, the reason why every truck looks the same from that back end is there are universal accessories like covers and what about where's my mind blank? There's a lot of things that can go inside there, right? So because the Ford has that traditional shape in the back, more things are going to fit, and it's going to be more cost effective because it's not specific for that design. Versus on the Silverado EV, it kind of slants backwards, like the Avalanche, the Honda Ridgeline first generation, things of that nature. Not that they won't make specific like covers and things like that for this, but they may cost more. There may be less choices to choose from, things of that nature. So those are some things that you may not like as much on the Silverado EV versus the Ford EV. I would still, my money on the line, I'm still going to go for the Chevy, and not because anything other than two things. One is the range that you're going to get with it, and two, really the biggest selling point to me is that midgate that falls down, so that way you can have more storage opportunity. That's what I like most about it. I'm excited to see what Dodge brings to the table as well, but being able to store more, that's kind of why you buy a truck, or at least that's why I would. So it says, which electric truck would I buy? I'm going to click on the Silverado EV, and it's about a 50-50 coin toss, right? Right now it's about 50-50. So we're going to start seeing these out on the road very, very soon. Let's see if anybody had any questions. Toolboxes. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. It was toolboxes. That was the shape I was thinking of. I don't know why I couldn't say that. So yeah, like tonneau covers, camper shells, toolboxes. So that's going to be something that's going to be in the Ford Lightning. It's going to be better. And then because you're going to have more options. All right, so let's see if they have any. Let's see. We can go here and look at photos. I'm going to show you some of the interior shots of the Ford Lightning. And I do like the interior a little bit better in the Ford. I don't know what the material is going to come with in the work truck for the Chevy, but I know that they're going to give you vinyl seats in the Ford. Well, this is a platinum. That's a high end. So this isn't vinyl. That's full leather. Let me see if I can find just the work truck's interior, which is this platinum's nice. That's great. I don't want to spend that much on the truck. For me, I'm buying the base model. It's called the Pro in the Ford Lightning, and it's called the work truck in the Silverado. So those are some of the, see, look at these nice things. You can have all these outlets to charge all your stuff. You can even keep your home going, right? This is 2.4 kilowatts. You can get up to 9.6 kilowatts. So let's say your power goes out in your house, but your truck has juice. You can actually use your truck to keep the most important things in your house going, like your refrigerator and things of that nature, right? Depending on how big and how much square footage you have. But who knew that your electric truck might actually end up being your backup generator? Aha, this is that front trunk called a frunk. I don't know the cubic feet inside the Chevy. This one I want to say is about 15 cubic feet. And just based on looks alone, it looks like the Ford Lightning has more space in its front trunk, and that's why it's called a frunk. So I like the one that's here. I like that they both have it, but I believe the Ford Lightning actually has a bigger frunk. But again, let me see if I can find the interior shots of the Pro model. I'm going to show you why I like it. Those are the higher end models. Nobody wants to show me the Pro. Well, darn. Only the Platinum. So I don't know if Chevy's going to give you cloth, which cloth isn't bad, but I have kids, and kids make messes, and so do I. I'm not going to blame all the messes on them. I spill things too, and vinyl is just easier to clean up. So I like the fact that the vinyl is going to come on the Pro, and that's why I wanted to show you that. Hopefully, that'll be an option on the Chevy as well. So let's see if anybody else has any questions. All right, back to it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend like I'm going to look for a car. So this segment is where if you guys have any questions, I'm going to show you my methods on how I find you guys cars, how I research things, things of that nature. So one of the cars that I'm interested in right now is called a Honda Civic, but it is not a normal Civic. It's actually called a Type R, which is their race version. So they take a regular Civic, they change the suspension, they change the transmission, they change the engine, they change the aerodynamics. So pretty much it's a complete makeover, right, for a car. And the specific purpose is that it's going to win a lot of drag races. There's going to be a lot of cars, especially EVs, right? You can get a Tesla Model Y and it just looks like a normal SUV and it's going to blow the doors off of a Type R. So we're not talking about straight line speed. The reason why you would buy a Type R is driver involvement. And the current Type R has what you would call controversial looks. Not everyone likes the outside of the car. So this one right here is actually the one that you guys got to see in my video. It's from the Acura store that's here. It's really beautiful. It's in great shape. But as you can tell, they want $44,000 for it when I can get a brand new one for about $37,000. This is called markup. All the cars right now are costing more than they should because there's just a supply strain, right? And so this is great if you look at this car. But you go, Eric, what if it doesn't have good crash test ratings? So let's go look at a 2019 Honda Civic. So then that's why you would come here and you type in 2019 Honda Civic. And it's going to go ahead and tell us what the crash test results are going to be. And this is the hatchback. We say agree. And crash test worthiness, avoidance. Some of the things I didn't like were the headlights, right? But overall evaluation, it says good. So this is going to be a safe car for you. You may want to invest in some brighter headlights because they didn't have the best headlights. But as far as crash test ratings, not that I want any of you guys to ever get into an accident, but this is one of the things that I look at. I look at crash test ratings. Okay, well, what about reliability? So this site here, it's called Car Complaints. This isn't me complaining, it's anyone complaining that's owned whatever vehicle we're gonna look at, and they say, hey, I had to take it to the dealer or my mechanic because this thing broke. So this is just a reporting website that says so many people said that this was what was wrong with that model. We're not saying all of them are gonna be like that, but when you start seeing like hundreds or thousands of people complaining about the same thing, then you're developing a pattern and you know that, hey, this is a common issue that you might want to look into. So again, we're going to go ahead and look at Honda. We're going to scroll down to the Civic. Civic hatchback, and we'll go 2019. And the biggest complaint was about accessories. Extremely uncomfortable seats. So that's not going to be about the Type R. I owned a 2017 Honda Civic hatchback with my lovely wife, Jess. It was white, just like that Type R, and the seats were the worst thing about it. That and the interior materials were very scratchy, and they would creak and rattle, and I'm not here for creaks and rattles, not a brand new car. I don't even like them in a used car, but I especially do not like them in a brand new car. And so that's not a big deal, right? Those are just smaller things. It's not like the engine's failing on you and stuff like that. Engine problems, here you go. There may have only been 2 complaints, but this is more severe. Check engine light issue. Let's find out what they had. So at 21,000 miles, this person had dash began, power was gone, the engine would not accelerate, and actually went slower with my foot pressing on the pedal. So it looks like this thing started having misfires. Diagnostic equipment connected to the car, no additional codes indicated. Still no loaner car after 1 week. Been doing research on the problem. The problem never happened again. I'm going to wait for it. So it looks like it was a fluke deal. I do know that with the 1.5 liter, there was an issue with oil being in places and water being in places that weren't good. So I don't know if that's something that this person had, but if you look here at the top right, it's that 1.5 turbo. All the hatchbacks had the 1.5 turbo unless you got the Type R, and then it came with the 2-liter turbo. So this isn't specifically complaining about the Type R, but those are some of the more important things that you want to look at. Then if you go, Eric, how fuel efficient is this car? Well, that's another great question. And then I go to Fuely, right? And so then we're going to look at, and then sometimes instead of going to Fuely, let's say if you're like, I don't remember the guy's website. So we can go 2019 Honda Civic Type R Fuely. Okay, so everyone that's had a Type R, we go smack dab in the middle. 25 miles per gallon was their average. That's not that bad for a car that has 300 horsepower. It's a little bit more, but roughly 300 horsepower. And it's a performance car to average 25 miles per gallon. It's not bad. So then this is kind of giving you an overarch that, yeah, this car is pretty good. Make sure you test drive it, make sure you like it, and all those types of things. Make sure mechanics looked at it, all those types of things before you buy a car. But this is those extra steps, right? So we would look to see, let's look in your price range. So that was step 1. And then step 2 was, hey, let's go ahead and make sure it's reliable for you. And then step 3, let's make sure it's a safe car for you. And then step 4, let's make sure it's as fuel efficient as possible. So those are those 4 extra steps that I do when I look at a car. So those are the types of things that I help on this back end of the live stream. The first part of the live stream, we talk about car news, whatever cars I've driven recently, if you guys have any questions on them. And then, you know, we talked about just new stuff as far as like the EVs and stuff like that. And now we're looking into vehicles for you guys. So let's see if anybody has any questions. Are you reviewing the GR86? Saw the pictures of that Neptune Blue on your channel. Yes, absolutely. I am going to be doing that GR86. I was mentioning that earlier in the episode, but if you weren't here for that, thank you for showing up now. The GR86 videos are going to be out next. Well, one of them is going to be out next week. One's going to be the week after. So next Tuesday is going to be the automatic. The following Tuesday is going to be the manual. The beautiful Neptune Blue was the automatic, and then Torino Blue was the manual, which is the dark blue. I prefer, I mean, the dark blue is gorgeous, don't get me wrong, but the Neptune Blue is where it's at for me. So that's going to end up being one of the finalists that I'm looking at getting a car for my channel. And that's going to be between the Civic Type R, the GR86, the GR Corolla, and the RF Miata. Those are the 4 vehicles that I'm looking at adding for my channel. Now let's see, what does the R stand for in Type R? So let's go ahead and pull that up for you guys. Oops. Wrong button. Let's go back over here. All right, so what does the R stand for the Civic Type R? Boom. All right, what you should know about the Honda Civic Type R. But since enthusiasts and tremendous interest, Honda decided commercial. What does the R mean? Here we go. So I wish it was something more meaningful. It just stands for racing, right? And this is a lovely blue that this is in as well. So I like that. So it just stands for racing. So different cars have different meanings that are on there. But the Type R, even though it stands for racing, it actually has a comfort mode, and I do not like uncomfortable cars. In fact, I despise them. I have a bad back. And this was the most comfortable, sporty intentioned car I've ever driven in that comfort mode. Even when you firmed it up and it was in R plus mode, which was the race mode, it had 3 settings. It had comfort, sport, and R plus. So sport was like its day-to-day normal, and sport and comfort were very closely matched. You saw a big difference with the adaptive dampers when you went into R plus mode. That was much firmer, but you know what? For most pavement, it was still fine. And I live in Colorado. The pavement is cracked all the time here because of the constant cold, then heat, it expands. So we have a lot of harsh roads. So I'm really good at testing out vehicles here because of that harsh pavement. So the Civic Type R handled those just so good. The manual transmission, honestly, probably one of the best manuals, if not the best manual transmission I've ever had. It reminded me of a front wheel drive Porsche Cayman. The Porsche Cayman's the most fun I've ever had behind the wheel of any car. I got to drive it at Speed Vegas around their track, and it was just amazing. And it wasn't just a normal Cayman, it was the GTS, which means it had the Alcantara, it had the race pads for the track, it had everything that was race ready, and it was just absolutely a stunner on the track. This car reminds me of a half-priced 50% discount GTS Cayman because it kind of does the same thing. It's all about precision. Is it the prettiest thing in the world? That's subjective. No, it doesn't look like the GR86 to me. It doesn't look like any of the other cars to me, but how it makes you feel when you're behind the road. I'm all about how a car makes me feel, especially if it's going to be a sporty car. And this definitely put a huge smile on my face. Loved it. All right, I know there was a couple other questions. Honda Jet, Civic is awesome, R equals racing. Yep, absolutely. What would you say is your favorite Honda? Lithium. Well, that's a tricky word, right? Because in America, Acura is not Honda, even though it is technically a Honda product. Acura does not exist outside the United States, right? So that's only here. So my favorite Honda product is sold as an Acura here. I like the 1997 version, but we can go back to its original 1990 date. But the 1997 Acura NSX is actually my favorite car. And I'll show you guys what that looks like if you guys haven't had the opportunity to see one. 1997. Oops. 1997 NSX. Kelly Blue Book. Let's see. This one. You know what? There was a Motor Trend. I wonder if that was a test. That'd be kind of cool to read an old test. So there you go. And you see how this yellow car is... Whoa. And you see how this yellow car is sliding out? Because that's rear-wheel drive. The engine's actually behind the driver. That's called a mid-mount rear, right? So the engine is behind you, but it's as close to the middle of the car as possible. And that's what you want, right? You want the engine to be as close to the middle as possible, which is probably going to be one of the best things about EVs, right? Because the weight is going to be as low as possible, center of gravity. And so if they make like an MR2 EV and they were to keep all the weight as low as possible, and low in two regards, low in the amount of weight and then low as far as the location, center of gravity, then that's going to be a lot of fun. So this is called a wedge shaped design. In the 90s, there weren't as many regulations. You can't have a wedge shaped design anymore because now cars, their bumpers have to be about, I don't know, 8 inches higher than what this bumper would be, because they were worried about pedestrians being ran over and having their legs cut off. And that's what used to happen with the NSX. Not like it happened all the time, but wedge-shaped cars did cause more bodily injury than today's cars with their bigger things like that. So that's why shapes like this no longer exist. But I love this car. This car was built as a, I don't want to curse, but this was as a big middle finger to Ferrari. Ferrari made fun of Honda for a long time, saying, great, you can make economy cars, but you can't play in our playground. We have cars that look cool and they're fast and they go around a track, and you guys can't compete with that. Well, they brought in some people to help them design this. There was a race car driver by the name of Senna, and he helped actually get the chassis on this 50% stiffer. And the 97 edition got a bigger engine, more power. It was just a little bit, they look the exact same as like the 91, but it's just, this is the version that I would want to buy. Unfortunately, the least inexpensive ones I can find online is like $70,000. May my channel allow me to make so much money that this can be in my garage one day, that would be fantastic. But to answer your question, Rithium, the Acura NSX is my favorite Honda product. All right, guys, we're coming up on the last 10 minutes of the chat. I can look anything up for you guys. We can look at different cars, trucks, SUVs, whatever you guys have on questions. Other than that, I can just keep talking about cars. Please chime in. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I feel like I'm just rambling for you guys. All right, so the NSX, since that was the last question, I'll keep talking about that. Why do I like this car? Well, I grew up in the 90s. I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 1981, so I'm 40. I'm about to be 41. And this was like a poster for me. Behind me this way, if I turn the camera, there is a red one of those on my wall right now in my office. And this is to get me motivated for my channel to keep going forward, so I can end up, instead of a car like that on my wall, that car will be in my garage. So it's rear wheel drive. And again, the benefit to rear wheel drive is, see how it's sliding out like that? It's just a lot of fun. Now there's something called snap oversteer when you're looking at a mid-engine car, especially from the 90s. There's something called snap oversteer. So some oversteer happens gradually. Snap oversteer is like it sounds. The oversteer happens in an instant, and that can be dangerous, right? And so this car doesn't have the worst snap oversteer of that era. I would say the first generation MR2 probably gets that. The MR2 was a really affordable version of this from Toyota. So Toyota made their own version of the NSX. They just made it a lot cheaper where everyone can afford to buy it. And you can still go out and buy an MR2 generation 1 or 2. Well, or 3. There was 3 generations really. And they may actually bring it back in an EV format. But snap oversteer was really dangerous with some of these cars. But like that Porsche Cayman, same style, right? The engine's right behind, but I never experienced snap oversteer in the Cayman. And the reason why I believe that to be is Porsche made it to where they've been doing this for so long that they made it to where the stability on it, it's just so good that you never really felt like you're in danger. And I took corners exceptionally quick. So cars like this are just a lot of fun to look at. They're a lot of fun to drive. So that's why one of these would be one of my favorites. All right, looks like we are winding down. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate you guys all coming up. And again, B. Youngston, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Before we go, if you guys have any last minute questions, Udon Noodles, would you still buy a gas-powered car now over an electric? Thank you. This is a great question. I guess it would depend on my needs, right? So let's play this out. Let's say I only drove 20 miles to work and 20 miles back, and I don't do a lot of long trips. Then an EV would fit my needs better because it's going to be more affordable. I can plug in it at home. And even if I don't have solar panels, it's still going to be cheaper for me to charge that at home than it is for me to pay at the pump, right? But what if you go, hey man, I currently drive 100 miles each day, both directions. Well, then I'm probably not going to buy an EV yet because not a lot of EVs have a lot of range. And what if you're not near like a charging network? If you're near like a big city, like if you're going to go from Pueblo to Springs or Pueblo to Denver, then there are superchargers or just supercharging network that you can kind of do that. Or maybe best of both worlds. Maybe have one car that is a gas, right? And that's for your longer trips right now until the networks get built up better, because we're still in the infancy when it comes to electric cars. There are still not a lot of charging stations that are out there, especially out in the boonies, right? Like I was talking about going camping, and one of the biggest drawbacks of taking a truck, if you're going to tow with it, if its initial mileage can only go 230 miles before towing, that's halved. Once you start towing, it's cut in half, right? So if you can only go 115 miles, you don't want to run out of juice and not be able to get home. So it's called range anxiety, right? So you kind of have to look at what your lifestyle is like. How far do you go every day? How far do you do for a long trip? I would still right now want to have at least one gas car in my household before I got an EV for a day-to-day. I'm about to buy my house. Once I get my house, I'm going to want solar panels. Once I get my solar panels, I'm going to want an EV. And the EV that I'm most excited for would be a truck because it comes with the most capability. And then if I don't have the drawback of paying 14 miles per gallon to drive a truck, but I can charge it for free on my solar panels and it comes with 300 miles of range or 400 miles of range, then I don't have to feel bad about driving a big truck. I don't feel like I'm polluting the world. I don't feel like it's putting a big drain on my pocketbook. Things of that nature. That is still super cool though. Absolutely. So that's kind of where I'm at on electric cars. I'm really excited that they're going to be here. I just really want, like yesterday, I was kind of hoping with General Motors live stream. You guys can go back and watch my live stream of the Silverado EV. And they talked about a lot of things besides the Silverado EV. They talked about their electric trucks for Walmart and FedEx and things like that. And I was hoping they were going to say, and we're going to invest $1 billion or $10 billion or, whatever into an infrastructure. But they didn't mention anything on getting the infrastructure built out. And honestly, it's like the chicken before the egg. You can't have one without the other. So we need that infrastructure to be put out there as fast as possible. So that way we don't have range anxiety and everybody can switch to an EV. And for practical purposes, absolutely. One of these days, my everyday car that I drive is going to be an EV. I will keep a gas-powered car for fun as long as I possibly can, because I love to shift myself. I love the 3 pedals. I like to be involved in the conversation, and I just want to have fun with the car. But Udon Noodles, if you have a question as far as like a gas car that you're looking at or an EV, if you have a budget in mind, it's only a $3 donation. I can actually help you find your next vehicle. So those are the types of things that I actually help people do. So please go ahead. If you have any questions specifically, you can either ask me on this particular live stream, or again, I'll be on here next week. Next week, we'll probably try a Wednesday and see how this is going. I'm trying different days of the week to see which day works best for you guys. I've tried a Monday, I've tried a Tuesday, and now we've tried a Thursday. And so I'm going to try Wednesday. I'm going to stick to one of those 4 days, whichever one gets the most people on where it's more convenient. In fact, those are online right now. How about you guys tell me, is this a good time of night from 8 to 9 Mountain Standard Time? That's where I am. Is that a good time of night, or would you guys like it to be an hour earlier? Would you guys like it to be an hour later? And is there a day a week that actually suits you guys better? That's the point of this, is I want to reach as many of you as possible to help you guys out. So please do tell your friends and family about what I can do as far as being able to help find your next vehicle, and come here ready to talk about cars. The first part of the show is just car talk. We're just here to talk about the cars that I've driven recently, and then some of the news that has happened recently in that week. I plan on doing this live stream about once a week. That's kind of where I'm at. Well, thank you guys again so much for showing up. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. Have a good one.